Hey everyone, it's Miss Stewart. So this video today, we are going to talk about the Holocaust, which is a huge, important thing that happened during World War II. Um, we know it was a genocide of the Jews, but today we're going to talk about other people that Hitler was trying to get rid of in order to create his master race and his perfect version of Germany. So for this PowerPoint, I want you to go ahead and write down everything that's in the red. All right, so let's get started. All right, so this is a PowerPoint about the Holocaust. So while everyone is running around and fighting in the Pacific and fighting against Hitler and his army, this is going on within Hitler's territory. All right, so you're going to understand today the roots of Hitler's hatred against the Jews, and we've already really talked about it when we talked about like the history of Hitler and how he came to power. We're going to talk about what were his goals and what is the final solution, and we're also going to talk about how the United States responded to the Holocaust and other countries as well. So I want you to go ahead and copy down this list of new terms for the Holocaust. So you can just put this in page 30 of your notebook. All right, so the roots of the Holocaust. So go ahead and start your notes on page 131. We know that Hitler was very racist and he proclaimed that Aryans and Germans were superior to all other people. So it's this desire by Hitler and others in Germany, and they wanted to blame someone for Germany's problems in World War I. And Hitler, obviously, they blamed the Jews. And then we have anti-Semitism. So hatred toward Jews, it comes back up. We've known it's always been in history. So this is just, here it is again. At first, it's just economic. They're just going to place like economic restrictions on Jews. So don't go to Jewish businesses. Jews are going to be fired from their jobs. They're going to be not allowed to work in banking, law, and medicine. So we're not really going to like physically hurt them yet. They're just going to hurt them economically. All right, and then the Nuremberg laws are going to be passed in 1935. So again, before the war officially starts, Jews are going to be forced to wear the Star of David. So this is like the patch they have to wear as identification. Jews are going to be revoked or stripped, or their citizenship of Germany is going to be taken away. Then they're not going to allow marriage between a Jew and a non-Jewish person. So if someone in Germany was Lutheran and they fell in love with someone who was Jewish, that was not allowed. And then they segregated Jews. So think about if you've learned about segregation in the United States between, black and whites, the same thing's going to happen in Germany, that segregation, but it's going to be Jews and non-Jews. All right, hatred. So because of all this happened, people are going to start committing violent acts against Jews, especially Hitler's secret police. During the 1938 night known as Kristallnacht, so this means Night of Shattered Glass, hundreds of Jews were killed and their businesses and synagogues were all burned down. So you can see they're shattering the glass of their businesses and they're burning their businesses. All right, you can see this is a picture. Obviously, this is 1930s. The photo quality is not that good. Jewish homes, like well-known Jewish people, their homes are going to be burned. Their businesses, their synagogues, their houses of worship. All right, so Nazis smash, loot, and burn Jewish shops and temples. That was in the New York Times around in 1935. All right, so Hitler's final solution to the Jewish question, was genocide. He thought, this is going to be our final solution. We are going to eliminate the Jewish race completely. He wants all of them gone. So beginning in the 1930s, the Jews were forced from their homes, put onto trains, and taken to concentration camp. Also, anyone who was labeled undesirable were also thrown into jail or put in a concentration camp. If you were healthy enough, you were sent to a slave camp to work. If you were not healthy enough to work, you would be executed or killed. Hitler decides that all other inferior groups were a threat as well and sends them to die. So anyone who disagree with him, political opponents, gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, homosexuals, and if you were mentally or physically handicapped, or even if you had like some like illness that couldn't be cured, you would be taken to die because he didn't want you like poisoning his perfect Aryan race. All right. Some people were taken to death camps. So the most popular ones are Dachau and Auschwitz. So their prisoners were killed in gas chambers or shot and their bodies burned. So most of these were in Poland. So you have 6 camps by 1941. Auschwitz is the largest. If you've heard of Anne Frank, this is where she ends up going and dies. Those 2 weeks would be killed and execution. So you could be killed by hanging, poison, gas chambers, guns. There was no stopping how you could be killed if you were sent to one of these camps. Initially, bodies were buried in mass graves, but then they're like, well, we got too many bodies, so what are we going to do with them? So later, they're going to just start burning them and just turning them their bodies into ash. Prisoners in other camps were forced to perform heavy labor. They're antagonized and tortured by the guards. Some are tortured or they are going to be subjected to medical experiments. Also, people died by starvation and disease. So this adds up. Millions of people are going to die from all of these different reasons in these concentration or death camps. We mentioned the medical experience. So one of these people was the Dr. Mengele, the angel of death. So he was the head physician at Auschwitz. He was a German SS officer, but basically he performed research and medical experiments. And they were torturous to these people that he was experimenting on. And most of the time it was on twins. He was obsessed with twins, so he would try to test their emotional connection. So he would torture one twin to see, how does that affect the other twin emotionally. This is a quote from another Auschwitz doctor. He was capable of being so kind to the children, to have them become fond of him, to bring them sugar, to think of small details in their daily lives, and to do things we would generally admire. And then, next to that, the crematoria smoke, and these children tomorrow or in a half hour, he's going to send them there. So the crematorium is where you burn them to ashes. Well, that is where the anomaly lay. All right, so Mengele is going to kind of escape once he knows he's in trouble. So he's assisted by the SS officers. He's going to flee to Argentina. Then he's going to go to Paraguay and Brazil, while people are looking for him in West Germany and Israel, and Nazi hunters, so that he could be brought to trial. So in spite of this legal removal request by the German government to all these other countries that he's fleeing to, he was never caught. He did end up dying by drowning while swimming off the Brazilian coast in 1979 and was buried under a false name. His remains were positively identified by forensic examination in 1985. So we weren't totally sure he died until about 1985. There's more on him if you go and watch this YouTube video. So basically, during all of this, the Allies received reports of Jews being killed, but they didn't understand how bad it was, so they didn't really do anything to stop it. And then 1943, they're like, oh, how do we rescue people? But there was no concrete plan being taken. the United States at this time and other countries blocked fleeing Jews from immigrating there. They're like, well, we don't want a mass migration of Jews coming here, so we're not going to allow them to come here at all because they just didn't understand what was going on. So that was very bad on the United States part. Like I mentioned earlier, Hitler's hatred went beyond Jews. So Hitler condemned to death and slavery not only Jews, but other groups that were viewed as inferior enemies of the state. So these were gypsies, people who were of Slavic descent, Jehovah Witnesses, Africans, Chinese, homosexuals, handicapped, mentally ill, and mentally deficient. So he did not like those people either, and they would also be killed. So here is a breakdown of how many people died from the Nazi genocide procedures and policies. So Jews, that's a 6 million. Soviet prisoners of war, people from Soviet Russia, 3 million. Polish Catholics, 3 million. If you were Serbian, you have about 700,000. Other Germans who were resisting him, 80,000. Handicapped Germans, 70,000. Those who are homosexual, 12,000. Jehovah's Witnesses, 2,500. So if you weren't with him 100%, you most likely were going to be killed in one way, shape, or form. All right, when Allied soldiers, so allies from France, Great Britain, United States, when they were able to take over these camps and set these people free at the world's end, they were stunned. Like, they did not understand how bad it was. So Americans reacted with an outpouring of sympathy and a desire to help. So therefore, then they let any Jewish people seeking refugee come to the United States and live here. So the Nazi crime led to renewed calls for an independent Jewish state. So this is when the state of Israel was officially founded in 1948. So President Truman, immediately recognized this new country, and the United States became a very good ally of the country of Israel. All right, so this is kind of a map, a breakdown of how many Jews died that were from each country. All right, so consequences of the Holocaust, 6 million Jews lost their lives. That number, like we looked at before, does not include anybody else. Nuremberg trials. So the Nazis are going to be put and brought on trial for crimes against humanity. So that would be the Holocaust, right? So they're going to be able to like persecute some people for helping Hitler. And of course, because the world did feel really bad for the Jews and them being persecuted, they founded the Jewish state of Israel. All right, so the next one, they are just some images of the Holocaust. If you don't want to watch the rest, this is fine, but these are just some images that were taken of the concentration camps. So they can be a little upsetting. This is the main entrance to Auschwitz. And these are prisoners that are lined up just before their execution in the woods. So they would take them out to the woods and execute them, most likely by shooting. Children were also killed. It did not matter if you were a child during this time. 2 million children were killed during the Holocaust. And this is some images taken in Auschwitz of the children that Dr. Mengele experimented on. This is at Dachau, the concentration camp. So the 2 U.S. soldiers, those are bodies on the train of Jews that have died on this death train. This is a Nazi about to shoot the last Jew left alive in Vinica, Ukraine. So there's the mass grave of all the bodies. And the aftermath. So this is General Eisenhower. He's going through looking at like the ashes of the Jews that are killed, going through the camps, and he's just, everyone was shocked by this. We did not understand how bad it was. All right, pictures of the Nuremberg trial. Some Nazis are put on trial. 1945. All right, so basically, the just to sum up, the Holocaust, basically, Hitler found a target for his anger in Jews and other undesirables, and then the Nazi persecution resulted in the deaths of 6 million Jews and 5 million people. So that is 11 million people total.